Hi everyone, welcome. My name is Kelly. If you don't know me already, I own Dogkind and I specialize in confidence building for very fearful, feral, shutdown dogs. And today we're going to talk about food motivation. A lot of our very sensitive dogs who spend a lot of time kind of hunkered down or hiding or worrying about everything seem to be not that food motivated. They may ignore treats you offer them, maybe won't even eat when you're nearby. So we'll talk about how to troubleshoot that today so that you can start building toward using food in enrichment and in training. Finding food motivation for shut down, fearful, or anxious dogs. This is for you if you have a fearful, shutdown, or timid dog who does not seem food motivated, and that might mean that they won't eat reliably around you, or maybe they even ignore food. If you put it down and leave, they still ignore it. And you want to use food in enrichment and in confidence building, but you're at a loss as to how to do that when they won't eat reliably. Why work on food motivation? This might be obvious to you if you already know why you want to do it, but it is probably the easiest form of positive reinforcement to use for most dogs. And I know that might not seem that way if your dog won't eat reliably right now, but it's much easier to have on hand and to provide than a lot of other positive reinforcers. Despite what your dog may lead you to believe, all healthy dogs are food motivated. And while there are other reinforcers you can use, it can be pretty difficult to identify other positive reinforcers for a really sensitive dog. Because just like with food, they tend to be worrying about other things and less interested in, fun or petting or anything like that. If you take away one idea from today's short lesson, this is it. Instead of asking, why isn't my dog food motivated? Ask yourself, when is my dog food motivated? That'll give us the basis from which we can build more extensive sort of enrichment games, quality of life measures, and training using food, which we'll touch on next week. How do we find your dog's food motivation? We start by asking, okay, when and where does my dog eat right now? And that might seem like a really simple question, but it can be extremely difficult to identify all the relevant details for a very fearful dog, because it might seem like it's kind of random. Like, well, sometimes they eat in this situation and sometimes they don't, so I don't know when they consistently eat. So I want to go over a few common areas to pay attention to. But before we talk about sort of external environmental factors that you can manipulate, if you think your dog is not eating enough, if they're losing weight, if they're having like vomiting or diarrhea, call your vet right away and get them looked at. Because if they're not eating consistently because they don't feel well, the rest of this that I'll talk about today isn't going to help you very much. You need to get the physical health side addressed first. Okay, presuming your dog is healthy, what affects whether or not a dog eats? And a lot of things, but here are some things that I most commonly see with my students, things that we need to identify and really narrow in order to make progress. The first thing is location, is where they are when they eat. Where does your dog eat right now most consistently? And you want to get really specific about this, not just like what room or, indoors versus outdoors, but where exactly. And for a lot of our sensitive dogs, some things that matter to them that might be sort of not intuitive to us from our human point of view is how close is the food to things like your dog's bed, their hiding spots, flooring changes like transitions between, say, carpet and hard floor can be relevant to them, and entry points or line of sight into an area, line of sight from people who might be approaching. Where might people come from, and are they in the line of sight of those people? That can make a really big difference to sensitive dogs. Now let me show you a few examples. This is little Randy, and his mom has been working on eating behavior in expanding sort of the context in which he will eat sort of consistently. And here you can see this room is his safe space, and he's in his bed where he spends most of his time. And you can see treats in an arc kind of around his bed. So they're, probably less than 6 inches from his bed, although he does need to at least reach forward with his neck, and you'll see he'll step out of the bed with his paws, his front paws. And so if he weren't willing to eat these treats, you might say, okay, I need to put it even closer so he doesn't have to take his front paws out of the bed to start. And another thing to pay attention to, which you'll see in a second as the camera rotates, is that while he doesn't have an obstacle like in front of his bed to hide in, the door to the room, the main door to the room, which is on the left of the screen, has this, I'll pause it here in just a second, paper on the door covering the windows so that someone who's outside of the room can't see him. So he's not in the line of sight of people, of any humans, when he's doing this, getting out of his bed and exploring, which for him, especially in early stages, is really important. Here's another look at location and eating behavior. This is Asta, and that bench is like part of her hiding spot. She has a blanket behind it. And the main thing I want to point out here is that it's pretty close. That licky mat is pretty close to her hiding spot, but you can see she's still really vigilant. She's doing a lot of looking around, scanning, pausing, and eating. And so if you were going to troubleshoot this, if your dog looked like this, one of the first things you might try, and it's not guaranteed to work, but that's why you try it to see, is moving that food even closer or even into the hiding place, like behind the bench. Okay, so that was location. One thing to think about is, where will my dog eat? Time is also a really relevant parameter for a lot of these sensitive dogs. When does your dog eat right now most consistently? And it might be as simple as a time of day, like time on the clock. You can pin it down to, an hour window here or there. But if it's not consistently at the same time of day, some other things to look at include in-home activity levels. So a lot of us are banging around and making noise like in the morning when we're getting ready for our day or when we're making dinner. Those times might be more difficult for some of our sensitive dogs to be willing to do anything related to food. It could also be related to outdoor activities or noises. So times when people are leaving for work, there are a lot of car doors closing. When people are coming home from work, when kids are coming home from school, those are times where there might be a spike in outdoor noise, and that can also affect a dog's willingness to eat when they're sensitive. And then very relevant to a lot of our very sensitive dogs is, did you leave, and if so, how long ago? Many of my student dogs will, when we start working together, will not eat when a human is nearby. So really briefly, a few specific examples of time and the relevance of different times. A lot of dogs I work with will, in the beginning, only eat after dark when everyone is in bed. Some dogs will eat just as soon as you leave the room, but they'll wait till you leave the room, or even as you leave the room if they're a little bolder. Whereas I also have worked with dogs who will only eat after you have left the house. Okay, so here's an example of Little Pancake early on when had progressed from the point where he would wait until I had been gone a long time to eat, but you can still watch his behavior when he's really comfortable starting to eat relative to my departure. So he does grab one treat that's really close to him, and then he watches me, and when he sees I'm heading for the door, then he starts to eat more readily. Oh, this is an example. This is Asta again, and it's a little blurry. I apologize. It was a low resolution video, but watch Asta. She has food on those yellow treat targets, and she's going to actually watch for her mom to drive away. I'll forward it a little bit. She's looking around. Since the walls of the balcony are glass, she's going to watch there. So mom just got into that car, the dark kind of gray car. And you'll see after mom pulls out, she starts to creep forward, but the car's still there, so she'll watch. Okay, there we go. And then as the car leaves, now Asta comes forward to eat. So for some dogs, they actually need that level of separation. All right. Finally, so we've talked about location and we've talked about time. Now let's talk about from where is your dog eating? And there are a lot of pitfalls, like kind of hidden mistakes that or issues that can be kind of hard to identify. So I'm going to show a few examples of this and talk about where my students have had trouble. Think about from what kind of surface does your dog eat consistently right now, or most consistently? Is it a dog bowl? And if so, what kind of dog bowl? How about a lick mat? Maybe it's the floor. Maybe they want the food on their bed. And occasionally a fearful dog will eat most consistently from your hand. That's not super common, but I have seen it. Pay attention to whether or not the bowl or what lick mat or whatever is something that's freshly washed, or is it used like it still has food scent from the last use. And be aware that sometimes there are carryover scents that some dogs respond really negatively to. That can be things like scented hand soap that, you wash your hands and then you handle the bowl and now they don't want to eat out of it. It can be any other sort of lotions and things. I've also seen stuff that has had medication, even if it was wrapped in something, has medication on it, and now the dog won't eat off of it. So carryover scents can be really important. Let's see, I think I have a couple examples, but let me check. This is a nice sort of combination of surface and location. So this is Winnie, one of my confidence builder students from I think it was the last class. And she doesn't like to eat out of bowls. And so her mom here has put food on this rubber mat. But you'll see she kind of, hesitantly approaches it and sniffs it. And then she's going to move away. That's water up there, I think, maybe, I'm not sure. So she decides, I'm not sure this is really worth it to me. So then here we have the same mat, but now it is on a carpeted surface. And there's also no water bowl there, which may or may not make a difference. So she still looks a little tentative to me, but she's more willing to eat over here on the carpet. And if it were a bowl, she still wouldn't eat out of it. So that's both what is she eating out of and where is it relative to sort of floor coverings. And here's another example that's kind of a cute combination of eating surface and location and other sort of the social environment. This is Little Tulip, and she doesn't like to eat out of really any bowls that her mom has tried, regardless of the material. She likes her licky mat. And she especially likes to eat off her licky mat when she's outside and her cat friend comes to get their food. So this is her most consistent eating situation. Right. Okay. So in summary, your dog is food motivated, but you do have to figure out when and where so that you can build on it. And one of the biggest difficulties is identifying all those little details that are very specific to your dog, what matters to them. But once you have them, you know what your foundation is, and now you can start to build on it. Expand the context in which your dog will eat successfully and consistently. Start to use food in enrichment games, and start to get a little more into training and confidence building. If you don't already have this free guide, Your Fearful Dog's First Enrichment Game, go to dogkindtraining.com/fun. And you'll get a free PDF guide with a linked video lesson that will show you how to try this out with your sensitive dog.